haven't done this race before. This is going to be my first time. I spent a long time training for this race, actually, so I was really looking forward to doing this.
I'm Jason McDonough, and that's my wife, Ann, and we would have raced in 25-29. Wish we were racing today, but you understand that, safety's an issue, and life is life.
When I found out the swimming was canceled, I was really disappointed because I had trained the most for the swimming. I'm a strong runner and a strong biker, but a weak swimmer. So I've spent the past, probably 6 weeks waking up at 5:30 in the morning and doing the swim and renting the wetsuit. And there's a lot of process, I think, that goes into preparing for a triathlon. This being my first, I'm just getting acquainted with it. And then when they said there's a chance the race might be canceled, I thought that would seem impossible. And so then, at 6 when I found that out, pretty disappointing because then I looked for other triathlons in the area and a lot of the other triathlons are full. So now, I'm trained and ready for a triathlon. We've got another month until the weather switches, and it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do one. So I'm going to actually email the race director of one of the triathlons and see if they can let me into it. But my guess is that all the people here are going to try and get into that, the Nantasket triathlon that's going on.
I can see with the steel plates and the construction that it'd be pretty dangerous to do the bike.
But, wish we could have done it. I think some people could have raced, but, take the day off and race next weekend.
Will you do the race next year?
If it happens. Good bet. I'm thinking it's not going to happen next year.
Disappointment is probably the most paramount emotion right now because everyone's disappointed. Race management's disappointed. Obviously, the athletes are all disappointed, but at the same time, you always have to keep the safety of the athletes in mind and your number one consideration when producing an event of this magnitude. With a swim in a harbor, with a bike through a urban metropolitan area, with all types of challenges, and then with the weather forecast as it was yesterday and the conditions as they are today, a confluence of wind and rain and difficult maneuverability of a bike course. You look at all of that and you just have to make a decision and not look back. And we just felt in the best interest of all involved it was best to cancel the event. We were given the forecast by the National Weather Services. We looked at every single site that we could to gather the information. Everything pointed towards rain, wind, and it was just inevitable. And we felt that it would be better to cancel sooner than later to minimize the inconvenience to a lot of people who otherwise would have had to come all the way down here to find out. So waking up this morning and seeing the weather, everyone is sort of satisfied with our decision in terms of canceling the race. Certainly we could have gotten up and it could have been better than it is out there now, but I think in the final analysis we made the right decision. We made it at the right time. Well, as far as the course itself, we've always promoted it as an urban triathlon, noting specifically that the bike course in particular was going through some construction areas known here as the Big Dig, that in any given day, one road exists and then the next day it doesn't exist anymore. Construction doesn't exist and then it exists. It's a constant changing bike course, and over the last 5 years that's been the case, but because the weather has cooperated, we've never really been challenged in terms of with the decision to go or not go, whereas again with the weather the way we were hearing it, we just felt it would be unsafe.
Dave, talk about your experience in directing other races. I know a lot of people know of you as the Boston Marathon director, but talk about your expertise in triathlon races also. You've got a wealth of race directing throughout your career. Talk a little bit about that and maybe about your track record with directing races.
Well, I've been doing this for 27 years. First triathlon in the early 80s, and have been involved in about 150, 160 triathlons in terms of directing them. Everything from the Triathlon World Championship in 1990 to the Goodwill Games, triathlon, to World Cup races, ITU World Cup races, to national championships, sprint, intermediate, Olympic distance, long course, ultra distance, Ironman distances, triathlons all over New England, all over the country, in other parts of the world. So certainly been there, done that. But also, fortunately, I've directed over 800 events, and I've never been faced with a situation like this where I've had to cancel an event. But again, you add up all the different pieces of it, and it just was out there like a neon sign saying, "Don't risk, don't chance it." If anybody ever got hurt out there on this course, you wouldn't never forgive yourself. So we just erred on the side of safety versus going with it and hoping that nothing would happen. The contingency plan was primarily based on the swim and not being able to do the swim. We call it Plan B. And the intent was that if there was a lot of rainfall and maybe the roads were dry but water quality plummeted, then we would implement a run bike run event, and that was in place. But then when we realized that the bike course was going to be more than dangerous, we felt that we can't even go with the run bike run.